Did you guys know Stephen King did Children of the Corn? That dude did everything. Anyway, hello, and welcome back, friends and foes. Today we're diving back into the grit and grime of the grimdark game that's been taking over the internet, Trench Crusade. If you've never heard of the Trench Crusade, the basics are that it's an ultra-dark, reimagined version of World War I. In an alternate timeline where about 1,000 years ago, some Templars opened a portal to hell, and well, bad stuff's been going on since then. Fast forward to the year 1914, and things are even weirder in the fight against hell. The model I'm painting today is one of my absolute favorites, the Stigmatic Nun. To quote the Trench Crusade rulebook, "Blessed with stigmata and unshakable faith, these swordmaster nuns are the vanguard of an assault by the holy armies." For those who don't know, stigmata in Catholicism is the miracle of people that acquire the same wounds as Jesus when he was on the cross. Wounds on the wrists, the feet, the head. These nuns see it as the highest honor, and well, as you could see with this one model, they truly believe it can make them invulnerable to any pain or harm. I do have an armored version here too. It's not all Gooner bait, but I do love the over-the-top ridiculousness of just believing so hard that you are basically wearing nothing but a helmet and charging in to fight against heretics and literal demons in the trenches of World War I. I think it fits well with the type of warband I want to run in my eventual crusade when the Trench Crusade book comes out. The Cavalcade of the 10th Plague, who are very, very Old Testament vibes, and before battle they sacrifice lambs and draw religious symbols on their body to shield them from harm. I've painted some Trench Crusade on here before, but today I'd like to use these ladies to dive into something a bit more specific: blood and gore. I've been playing around with some of these methods that I think work really well for all of you freaks out there that want to bring the really nasty grimdark to your Trench Crusade, Warhammer 40k, or whatever other thing you're getting into. But before all that, we have to paint these ladies. Step 1 is easy enough. We're just using my absolute favorite, Pro-Acryl Dark Silver, to hit the armor and the weapons. Then it's time for the moment you've all been waiting for. We're painting boobies, guys. And I mean some serious honkers, a real set of badonkers, packing some Dobon honkeros, massive dohonkabonkaloo. Anyway, Cadian Flesh Tone from Citadel is really nice, a couple coats of that. And some of Vallejo's dark sand on her crotch flaps. Now, for a little bit of the metal details, I'm throwing in some Pro-Acryl Bronze into the mix. It's a wonderful metal color. To be honest, I highly recommend it. For the dirt, I like Vallejo's brown leather. It's a great all-around normal brown color. Then some of the Pro-Acryl's caramel brown on these duck boards, here for a little variation in the browns. Last but not least, we're putting on some of Chimera's The Red on her little flap thingy here. I like the bright red accent for this warband that's kind of obsessed with blood. It makes a really good contrast when we're about to make everything real grimy and gross. After that, all of our base coats are done, and it's looking pretty nice. But we need to throw these girls into the trenches, right? Bringing back my oil washes on this one. Here we have our burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and French ultramarine. After these colors are thinned, the ladies are getting doused, using blue in the shadows and blending in the ochre and sienna for the higher points. The nice thing with these oil washes is that there's a lot of room to push around paint, blend things, mess around with it until it clicks for you and you like the look. I really like using this method for oil washes because the variation of the colors and shadows can get really interesting. Taking a Q-tip, I'm going to dab off some of the oils, trying not to press too hard into it because I want to leave the oil paint in the recesses. At this point, there's still plenty of wiggle room if you need to add more wash or anything. Then they must dry. Now we're up to the moment we've all been waiting for. Time to get gross. We're going to dive into all my favorite blood technical paints here. We have everybody's favorite, Blood for the Blood God, Army Painter Fanatics True Blood and Dry Blood, and I've got a little secret for all y'all with some Dirty Down Snot. The first step of this I'm going to do is a base of Dry Blood on both models. I think this part is super important because it depends on whatever lore you're going to have going on. But for me, these nuns have seen a lot of battle in the trenches, plus their stigmata, plus using sacrificial lambs before battle. They probably should have a lot of caked up and disgusting old blood on them, right? The Dry Blood paint has a little texture to it that really adds this old, gross effect. Up next, we're going to compare and contrast the two Fresh Blood colors. Let's do the Naked Lady first. On her, I'm going to use the Army Painter True Blood. Just going over the old Dry Blood to add a little brightness and variance to the colors. I used Blood for the Blood God on the Armored Lady. Same idea here, just making sure to get her sword nice and gross. Now we're going to let the Winds of Fate take us for a moment. Blood splatters. Still keeping the same blood paint to the models I said before, but now we're taking a brush that has some very stiff bristles and a drill bit that I don't use for anything else. We are flicking some paint. This is easy to overdo, but also playing it by ear here. You can take a peek between flicks and just see how the model looks, right? Just making sure to get some on the ladies and some on the ground to incorporate everything together here. Last but not least, we have the wild card here, the Dirty Down Snot. Dirty Down does make a gore effect too, but I really like the snot because there's a lot of versatility. I've also used it for Nurgle models and things like that. But for this, I also grabbed an extra model, a little mutated freak from my Chaos Cult kill team to show you. Now, sadly, the footage was lost of me putting the snot on him, but I'll show you on the nun. Using a toothpick here, I'm grabbing this weird gummy glue and hooking it on to the mace and the other guy's weird talony things. The snot is kind of sticky. Sometimes you have to play with it a little, so you could see me here having to mess with it a little bit, but it does connect and you could stretch it from one part to the next, like on the other guy, one talon to another, and really just kind of figure it out. There's a lot of wiggle room, seeing what looks good. The cool thing about this stuff is that it hardens like glue, and that's really what I did on the nun here. I thought this stuff would be great to make it look like she just caved in some heretic's skull. Connecting the snot and pulling it down makes these chunky kind of drips. Then letting the junk dry, it dries like glue. Then after that, I'm going to paint over this goop. First with that dried blood again, especially in the parts that are a little bit more clumped up. It gives the illusion of some disgusting chunky matter with the texture of the paint and the texture made from messing around with the snot. Painting the True Blood on after adds those same variations in the blood color and all that goodness. Then we just have some base rims to do, and then on to the spinny shots. Thank you all yet again for hanging out, and before we start spinning, I thought we'd get into a little side-by-side of all these guys, comparing and contrasting, so you could see if you notice any differences between these paints or if you have a preference and all this stuff. I've been a big fan of these Fanatics technical paints for all my trench crusading needs. But are you guys still hyped for Trench Crusade? Last I checked, all of our Kickstarter books should be shipping out very shortly. What faction are you getting into? Let me know in the comments. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, it really means a lot. And if you want to come hang out with me on Twitch, give me a follow at twitch.tv/drinkyourpaintwaterlive, where I stream 3 nights a week. And with that, I'll see you in the next one.